That sounds good. Good evening, everyone. With the posted time having arrived and a quorum of members present, I'll call the Public Health and Safety Committee meeting for Monday, March 20th, 2023 to order. The first item of business on our agenda is to approve the minutes of our previous meeting from 2/20 of 23, copies of which are in the packets. Did anyone note any corrections or revisions they needed for the minutes? If not, I'll take a motion to approve the minutes.
Move to approve.
Motion from Denny. Is there a second?
A second.
Second from Henke. Further discussion? Seeing none, members in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? None are opposed. Item number 2 is to consider approval or denial of various license applications. We did receive back from the Common Council last Tuesday a request to re-review a prior denial recommendation, and that is based on the applicant's right to submit verification of rehab. So Abed Sukhire has submitted documentation to the clerk that he's requested that the chief review and make a recommendation as to whether or not that license should continue to be recommended for denial or if there is an opportunity for him to receive the license. Also recommended for denial tonight is Katrina Pelletier. Previously denied. The minutes from the last time that took place are in the packet as well. Both applicants recommended for denial have the right to address the committee if they want. Abed, did you want to come up and talk with the committee? I know you had submitted a number of documents for tonight, so.
I'm just really wishing hoping that you guys give me a chance. I know I've made mistakes and I've done everything I can to be better and be a better person for anyone around me, anyone I meet.
Okay. Committee members, any questions for Abed? Chief, do you have any questions or comments regarding the proof of, or the documentation for rehab that you'd received?
I don't have any questions. I would say I'm a little conflicted. The policy that is set by the council requires, actually, because battery is an exempt offense, usually we wouldn't allow evidence of rehabilitation to come into play. And so, at the last council meeting that was offered, and I don't think we've seen that many letters of recommendation in a packet before for anyone or anything close. I think there's 9 of them I've seen now. So that is pretty persuasive. So I would just say that, that the recommendation that I made is based on policy, and the OWI and the cocaine conviction in 2018 is the most recent thing. So if I'm going to stick with the policy, I'm going to stay with a no recommendation and leave that to the council to decide from there.
Okay. Sure. Go ahead, Mary.
Just so you know that most of the license year is over, so if you were to grant him the license, it's going to expire June 30th and he'll have to renew. So that would give, several months to see if everything stays good. If something happened, you could also consider not renewing at the end of June. That's just something to keep in mind.
True, and the other option we always have is revocation. So if something would not be going according to plan, that's a more extensive process, but that still is an option as well that we've had to do in the past, once with impaired server ordinance. So
I would say that my understanding, and Tara can correct me if I'm wrong, that non-renewal process is this very similar to non-revocation or to a revocation process. So, it's not as simple as just saying we're not going to renew. You have to go through a revocation process.
there have to be a hearing in here. So, okay. Alder Larson, go ahead.
Thank you. I come from a pretty storied past myself, and I wasn't born with a silver spoon in my mouth, and I've had my share of troubles down the lines, and I worked my way through it, and I got through it, and people gave me second chances. I see a battery conviction 10 years ago. I see these other commissions, are almost, if not 5 years old, and we ask, to bring stuff forward to us, and he's done that, and the fact that his employer came here and said that, look, I need this guy, he's good for my business, you know. I'm gonna, and well, based on what Mary just said, you know, why not till June 30th? If something goes wrong, we can take it back, you know. So I'm gonna go out on a limb, you know. I know we all received our quote training, but you know, I don't feel one jacket fits all, you know. And so I'm gonna vote for Mr. Sughair to get his license.
Okay, and so we would take those two that are recommended for denial separate from the batch if there's a desire to do that. Would you like to offer a motion to?
Yes, I would offer a motion to make these two separate from the
Okay,
from the
and
packet.
and then a motion, well, and
And a
we'll take the
motion
other
to
one
approve.
separate, but one to
Yes.
approve Abed?
Yes,
Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve Mr. Sughair.
Okay,
A second.
okay, and we have a second from Denny. Further discussion? Go ahead,
Yeah,
Doug.
well, Chad.
Oh, yep. Well, let's go with Doug, then
All right,
Chad.
all right. Thank you. Yeah, this one is a little tough because, you know, according to the policy, we're right on that 10 years and 5 years. 5 years for me seems like a pretty decent distance, and 10 years on the felony is certainly a decent distance in the past. You know, I had an opportunity to command an assault helicopter company in the Army years ago in the 80s and 90s, and the Army aviation lifestyle, I guess, or, you know, it was a work hard, play hard thing. And in the 80s and 90s, I had the opportunity to refer a lot of people to counseling. So if a pilot, whether you were a pilot or a crew chief or worked in the motor pool, you know, you want to, it's a career-ending opportunity, career-limiting thing to have happen to you. And as a pilot, it can take you up to a year if you can ever get back onto status. But even as a crew chief, we put people in counseling, and if they've finished counseling, you know, I can tell you that probably 80% of the people who commit to it will pass and will do well once they get back on their job. And there's going to be, you can tell a person who isn't going to make it is one who's in denial that they ever had a problem. And I think we've seen some owning up to the issue here, and the list of people, and I know some of them who wrote recommendations here are stellar people in the community, so I'm going to support this as well.
Okay. Chad?
Oh, go ahead, Chad.
I guess, how old were you in 2013?
I was 21, 22.
Okay. I'm really feeling like giving you a second chance. You've showed up 3 times, which is amazing. So that's kind of where I'm sitting on this. Thanks.
Luke,
Can I add one more thing? Can I
Certainly.
address Mr.?
you can.
You know, coming from the background that I have, you know, should you get this opportunity, all I can say is don't blow it. You
I'll
know,
guarantee it.
Don't stop working on you. You know, because you think that you're all done now, that you got this. No, actually, you're just starting.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because if you sit in a barber chair long enough, you're going to get your hair cut. Remember that. So just
Yes, sir.
continue to work on you. Thank
Yes,
you.
sir.
Okay, Becky?
I have a question for Tara. With an exempt offense, will there be any precedent setting for other exempt offenses that come before this committee if we overturn?
So there's nothing in the Wisconsin Fair Employment Act that says for an exempt offense, you can't permit a person to show there's rehabilitation. So I mean, yeah, in the sense of the definition of precedent, yes, you've done something that we haven't done, but I always look at things, you know, facts are different. Facts and situations are different, and you know, so is it, if you do it once, do you have to do it every time? Certainly not. But when you do it once for somebody who's similarly situated to someone else, then you have a little bit more difficulty.
Sure. In this situation, I guess I did find the testimonial and the letter from the employer as compelling. I think just because he's got some work experience there already, and the fact that the license year, like Mary described, is growing short, so that does give you some, I guess, a trial of all of this. And even though the process to either non-renew or revoke a license is lengthy, it's not that we've never done it. So, the committee does have some options here if this doesn't go the way we planned. And I agree with folks that are similarly situated being treated the same. I mean, obviously, there is some, this one does kind of fall on the line where, there is a decent amount of documentation as far as, changes that he's made and a program that he has completed. So, I think that we're right to consider this one separate from the batch. And I think when the council gave it back to us, it was so that we could learn a little more, because none of that evidence was here when we first denied it. And absent that proof, we have to deny it. We have no choice. So now that we have that documentation, though, I think we are free to make either decision, whatever you guys feel. So we had a motion from Larson to approve the license. Was there a second to that? Second from Denny. Okay. So is there further discussion on this particular license? If not, those in favor of granting the license signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? None are opposed. That motion carries. So that license then will go back to the council for approval. So
Thank you.
Thank you for submitting
Thank you.
those documents. That made a difference. So,
Thank you very much.
all righty. Thank you. Next recommended for denial is Katrina Pelletier. Has Katrina Pelletier joined us in the audience tonight? Katrina Pelletier. Let the record show she has not appeared. Her license is recommended for denial. This will be the second denial, but the record has been previously reviewed. Also on tonight, we have a number of events. Go ahead, sure.
Are we getting ahead of ourselves? We need to vote on Katrina before we go?
Unless there's a request to consider her separate from the batch, if your desire is to
Well,
allow
I
it to be.
thought that's what it was. We considered these two from the batch.
Well, we took a bed from the batch, but we can leave Katrina in if your desire is to deny her. Only if you
Well,
want to.
I will make the motion that, since Katrina's not been here twice, that her license be denied.
So we leave that one in the batch, and then it would go, if we take a motion to accept or deny as recommended by staff, that would happen. We could do one vote then, if that works.
So if you approve the license list with the denial, she's denied?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And since we took a bed out, that would not affect him. So that said, though, we also have some events, and let me just take a look at our agenda. One of those events is a request from Wausau Area Events to allow for the equivalent of an ale trail beer walk during a couple night, it's an evening event, River District rather, sorry. And so that is new for this summer, and it would allow activities similar to what a person sees with exhibitor, as I understand it, but it would be beer that would be purchased and taken, between businesses in the public right of way. If we wish to allow that, my understanding is that we have to grant a waiver to that open intox ordinance to allow for that, where we would define the hours and days of the event. And we do have Blake with us from Main Street, if we want to ask him some questions about that event. I guess, Blake, did you want to come up and talk about that event? Or River District, rather. So, with regard to the ale trail, talk to us a little bit about the controls that you would have in place. Are you using something similar to exhibitor with wristbanding and
Correct.
ID checks and whatnot?
Yeah, so it'd be one centralized location for, well, there's kind of two separate events we got going on here. We got the Summer and Holiday Ale Trail, which we just did this past November. So that would be just the same way we conducted it in November, where people would be able to purchase tickets, they'd be able to stop by our office, get wristbanded, and then be sent out the door with their map of where to get their beer samples inside businesses. So that is the concept for the Summer and Holiday Ale Trail. A little bit different this year is the Wausau Night Market. It's the first time we've done this here in the city, and there's been a huge gap since Marketplace Thursdays went away in 2018. So this is a highly curated market. In fact, we just sat down today to select our vendors. they'd be able to purchase beer at the actual market itself. We have had, I do want to note, there has been a location change. We're notified that the City Square Plaza will be undergoing some renovations or changes this summer, so we already secured the 400 block. We do not intend to utilize the entire space, but just the plaza area, so that is where the beer sales will happen. They can purchase beer at that location, then they'll also be wristbanded. There will be a map kind of scattered on sandwich boards throughout the downtown area indicating where they can and cannot go, as well as sandwich board signage as they kind of near the boundaries. The area that we have identified, and of course we are very flexible with this, is 3rd Street from Washington to Grant, so where the former mall was, to Evolutions in Design, and then bordering a street on either end, so 4th Street to 2nd Street, so a big rectangle.
Okay. Chief, what are your thoughts on this event? It appears they have similar controls to what they have for their other events.
Yeah, that was, we met and we talked through these items and these issues and our concerns. And, you know, it is very similar to some other events and how they're going to control, you know, the event space. And so, you know, we felt comfortable with, you know, with giving it a shot if the council is supportive of the event, so.
Okay, and we have given the waiver in the past, since the state law changed to allow wine and beer walks, that made exhibitor legal where it wasn't when it first began. And so since then, we've given that waiver a couple times and it's not been a problem. So we would utilize that same mechanism again if you guys are up for it. Those are all included in the pack. So if you approve the events in the pack, your approval then should include the issuance of the waiver for the Wausau Night Market and for the Summer and Holiday Ale Trail events as noted in the event schedule. Does anyone else have any questions about that? Is there a motion then to accept or deny licenses as recommended by staff, including the issuance of the open intox and the public right-of-way waiver for those events, Wausau Night Market and the Summer and Holiday Ale Trail events?
I'd move to approve the various license applications as
Okay.
outlined,
Yeah, including the waiver for the events?
including the waiver for
Okay.
the events.
Okay, so we have a motion by Denny. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Larson. Further discussion or questions? Seeing none, members in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? None are opposed. That motion carries. So all are approved and the one is denied. And that takes care of licenses and events. Thank you, Blake, for coming in. Item number 3 is the annual report from the Wausau Fire Department, which is included in your packets. Anything that you have questions for Deputy Chief Kopp on, we can ask him. Or if there's anything that you wish to talk with us about, Jeremy, on the report.
Well, if you want to,
Go ahead, Doug.
okay. Can you tell us how many runs do you make where you're running to assist? I think it was in the chief's letter. You're assisting other ambulance services who may not have EMTs coming into the city?
So talking mutual aid. Is that
Right. How does that?
Yeah, our mutual aid calls it, and I have February's report, which I was gonna allude to in a second, that doesn't have all the details. But in our monthly report, we categorize all the different runs we made to different townships. I apologize that it's not in the annual report for a number for the year, but it grows every year also, just like our run volume. And the more these townships and smaller cities and villages struggle, the more they're actually relying on us to come and help them. And we've made some pretty incredible saves as far as Wittenberg and all the way out to, what was the last one? Abbotsford. So, you know, we're doing those things when we're available, but there are times when we're turning them down because we're so busy in the city. So to give you exact number, I wouldn't be able to do unless I
I'm
had.
less concerned about the number, it's just understanding the process. So you drive, meet them halfway, or how do you pick a
Oh, I see what you're
rendezvous
saying.
point, and then is there so you keep, the EMT on board is worth the stop in the transit
So,
time?
yeah, I guess we were talking about two separate things. So sometimes we go right to the scene in their townships if it's a first responder. If we're just doing a support where we're gonna take over, we'll either let them drive our ambulance and move the patient to our ambulance, which will be an ALS ambulance compared to maybe a basic life support ambulance. But a lot of times we'll just jump in their med and continue patient care with the equipment that we can carry over, and then finish traveling into the hospital while their EMTs take our ambulance back to Wausau. And I say Wausau, but it could be any hospital, but traditionally it gets back to Spirus.
Okay.
Okay. Anyone else have questions on the report at all? It's a well-written report. It's very impressive. We will place that on file if no one else has questions or comments. Okay.
I would just add with the report,
Sure.
and I guess for me, I just want to thank this, for everybody in the city as well as our staff, for the extra hard work that's been going into this year. We all knew it was going to be a transitional year, and to get the support that we're getting from the community and our partners at the city, as well as our staff at the fire department, it's been phenomenal. It's been a crazy, tricky couple months already, but everybody's taking it with head on, and we're making some great strides, and I think we're going to succeed at this pilot program. So I just wanted to add that.
Excellent. Okay, so we'll place that report on file. The next item is the operations report for the month of February. Does anyone have any questions on that report at all? Anything you want to run through on the February report at all, Jeremy?
Yeah, in the next couple days, if you read the first page written by the chief there, you'll see that we are missing some stats. Without Mindy around to generate those for us in a quick, timely manner, we chose to put together this report, and we'll be sending you an updated report for this month with the statistics, so that'll be coming shortly.
That works. So, but yeah, with all of the challenges, I mean, I was just excited that we were able to first fill the open positions that you had and find that many new faces. Obviously, that was the goal when we talked about adding some workforce down there. So there'll be a young crew and a lot of training, but I think good things ahead for the department there. So we'll place that report on file as well if no one has questions or comments about it. Item 5 is the tavern activities report for the month of February. You see we have that in there as well. Does anyone have questions for the chief on that at all? It looked like a number of the incident reports were reports from bartenders, which is what we want to see. We want to see them asking for help before things get out of hand. Go ahead.
Yeah, I do have a question on the one. It looks like there was a call to the cop shop, and then it ended up, the second call to the Domino was, could you explain how that transpired, or do you know that, was that person not picked up the first time? Or is it a dumb question, I guess, if I read that right.
Well, they were 2 different days though, right? Same person, but 2 different days?
Oh, was it the same? Okay.
One was the 14th and the other one was the 9th.
Correct, yep. Yeah, there were separate events, yeah.
Okay, I thought I saw in here where it was the person from the, oh, okay, it was the person. It wasn't necessarily the same evening.
Right.
Okay.
No, 2 bad days for that person, so, okay. And so nobody has questions on that at all, and you see the demerit point list and things are all attached in the packet with that we receive every month. The new addition that's highlighted on the report is 50 points were assessed to Denmark for no licensed bartender on the night that they did the bar check. So, but otherwise, everyone else looks pretty much the same, and obviously that runs on a running 12-month calendar, so as time passes, if nothing else happens, those get better. So if no one else has any questions on that report, we'll place it on file also. Item number 6 is our community outreach update. So every month we invite Tracy in to talk with us about how things are going, and you've got her report. I think that also was emailed out earlier today. So Tracy, if you want to come up and give us just a little synopsis of how this month is going.
Yes, so for the month of February, we have about 191 unhoused individuals who are either seeking shelter, incarcerated, or living outdoors. 82% of the unhoused actually did receive and seek shelter, while 18% decided to stay outside or in a place not meant for human habitation. Again, the capacity at both of our shelters, Salvation Army is 28, Catholic Charities is 25. For the month of February, the Salvation Army did not reach capacity on any one given night. Catholic Charities was a little bit different. They had about 16 days where they were at or over capacity for a total of about 57%. The turnaway count for this month was a little bit decreased from last month. And again, most of the turnaways are related to capacity issues or ineligibility for programming at the Salvation Army. As far as my outreach update goes, I have a correction. I actually did assist 3 unhoused for the month of February. I had one at the very tail end of February that I forgot to add in, so I apologize. So that is a total of about 20 unhoused individuals now housed, with my assistance and the assistance from other community partners, and to date, still 100% of those remain housed.
That is a success story.
Yeah.
Does anyone have questions for Tracy at all about her work for the last month? Also tonight with us, we have.
Wait, stop.
Oh, go ahead.
I have one thing that I really do want to share with you, and each month I try to come to you with a specific success story.
Yes.
You know, we often talk about the effects of trauma and what that does to a person. And I'd like to share a story with you tonight about an individual that I worked with in the month of February. In the month of February, I had the pleasure of working with a gentleman who is 56 years old. He was born and raised in Merrill with his mom and his stepdad. His trauma started early on at the age of 2. Through the age of 12, he was physically abused by his stepfather. And around that time, the abuse stopped, which was around age 12. He started finding trouble with the law in other places and began drinking at a very young age. He found himself in jail and headed to prison. At age 17, upon his release, the drinking got even more significant, which contributed to more jail and a total of 8 more times in the Wisconsin prison system. His 8th OWI was the final wake-up when he was pulled over at 3 in the morning for going southbound in a northbound lane on I-39. His trauma runs very, very deep. He has been through 3 failed marriages and completely absent from his son's two of his sons' lives. He did not like his life and drank even more to escape from everyone and everything. He lied and he stole from family, friends, employers, whoever he could to get his addiction taken care of for that day. His only mission at that point was to become intoxicated to escape. He didn't want to think, he didn't want to feel, he didn't want to function. After a little over 3 years of his 8th prison sentence, he entered into a 6-month alcohol and drug program called ERP. He graduated and was eligible for early release on probation. And as many times as he wanted to give up, he stuck with it. And during this time, he was able to find out who he really was. These are his words. I quote, "I hated myself and vowed to myself to never let another chemical control my life the way alcohol did." As of April 5th, 2015, he was sober for 8 years. It doesn't end here for this gentleman, though. On February 14th of 2017, he lost his 3rd wife, who actually was his best friend. 4 years ago, July of 2019, he lost his oldest son due to a heroin addiction. His son was the victim of heroin laced with fentanyl. At the time of his son's death, this gentleman was in Florida living with his sister, sober and thriving, and when he returned home to attend his son's funeral, he stayed in the Wausau area and began working. He lived in his late wife, the 3rd wife who passed away, with her sister. To add to this gentleman's trauma, in October of 21, his granddaughter took her life to suicide. In May of 2022, he had a heart attack, and that led him to being unemployed, unable to pay rent, and homeless. On September 1st, he became homeless here in Wausau. He tried staying at the warming center, but the atmosphere was too loud, and he experienced items being stolen from him. He began living outside, in a tent on Barker Stewart Island. Sorry. During the month of January, during the cold snap, he found himself screaming in pain because he was literally freezing to death. Our patrol officers heard him cry, and they responded and called for help. The Wausau Fire Department responded and transported him to his Paris. Sorry, I met him shortly after that. The first time we met, I was both inspired and saddened by his story. His ask of me at that time was, please help me. I don't want to do this anymore. We spent some time talking about the possibilities, and on Monday, February 13th, this gentleman entered the Hope House, which is a sober living house here in Wausau. Since entering into the Hope House, he has, number one, established care with a primary care doctor to help stabilize his diabetes and high blood pressure. 2, he entered into counseling. 3, he has gone to AA meetings almost daily. 4, has applied for a job. This is just a few of the amazing things that he has been working on. And even after undergoing stomach surgery only 2 weeks ago, he started that new job today. I'd like to say that I am here to help and inspire those who I meet. But this guy right here, he's been the one that's been my inspiration. Rick, can you stand up? This is Rick. So, he's done amazing things, and he does a lot of this on his own with obviously our help, but I'm sorry that I got so emotional, but this is the investment that I get to make with these individuals, and I get to hear their stories, and I get to help them sort through what they want to do with their life. And it's times like these where I can bring someone like Rick here and talk about all the successes that he has done on his own that make me want to keep moving ahead and helping more and more people. So thank you again for the opportunity to lead our community in this way. And thank you for the opportunity to let me help others in this community that so need it.
That is a tremendous success story, and so thank you for that, Tracy. It's obvious why you have the heart for this job. So it's a job that takes a lot of heart and takes a lot of caring, and you are absolutely in the right place. And so thank you also for bringing Rick, because that's a success story that I think we need to hear. The meeting obviously is live streamed, and the community gets to hear those success stories and really see the impact that your work can make. So that's the kind of outreach we want to see. When we talked about an outreach coordinator to give people a hand up and pull them onto a path that will result in a journey perhaps to a positive place and out of a place that is sometimes repetitively difficult. And so that's exactly the kind of work that we love to hear. Does anyone have any questions for Tracy on her report at all? Go ahead, Doug.
Yeah, quick question. Just to understand the chart, you've got the place not meant for human habitation, so I assume that, are those 35 unique individuals, or are those 35 different?
Unique individuals.
They are.
And that would be individuals who are either living outside in the elements, in vehicles. It does not include those that might be what we call couch surfing, because those are really too hard to count, but just individuals living outside.
Okay, so that's a kind of a point in time count, or is that, I mean, they've been there the whole month, or were some of these
Some of
in
them,
Catholic charities and transitioning
Right,
back and forth kind of
correct.
thing? Okay.
Yes, some of them will come in and out of shelter. They might, if it's really cold, they might get out of the elements for a night to come to shelter and then go back, so.
Okay, so do you have any feel for, of the 35 there, that, how many of those potentially are there on their own choice, or how many of that, what percentage of that group? I mean, I guess that's the whole heart of this homeless issue, but what percentage of that group is looking for the hand up?
So I think, that's a really good question, but I think it's a really tough answer to give you, because the majority of the individuals that are staying outside are are doing that by choice. And it's not because they haven't tried shelter or, some of them maybe haven't, but some of them try shelter and it's just not the right atmosphere for them. Others are struggling really, really significantly with mental health, and their mental health issues do not allow them the opportunity to stay in shelter because of anxieties they have or paranoias that they have. And then, to be quite frank, I mean, those who suffer with addiction, who can't be away from that substance for hours in shelter, also seek staying outside so that they can feed that addiction as they need to. So,
Thank you.
Yeah.
And right, I guess as we look forward to our committee of the whole to discuss this issue, that 35 number, you kind of want to think success would be to bring that number down, but how realistically can we get there, and what are the things we need to do to address it? And obviously, you've got to, if we had a sense of what those, if you could categorize those, would be. And I'm not trying to ask for extra work, but I'm just trying to get a sense for what categories we are going to be faced with. We already all know most of them, but mental health, alcohol, drugs, and that's going to be something we're going to need to talk about next week when we have that meeting.
Well, and I
Thank
think
you.
there's been some effort to build a bridge and establish some type of working relationship with the new director at NCHC, right? So, I mean, obviously, they're a key partner because often their facility is a first stop for a number of people who are trying to like at least get their feet up under them. So I think if we can forge a strong partnership there and, really get a positive working relationship going between, our agencies and that agency, that's a huge step for us too, so.
and I think the other thing to, Doug, to point out is, so I'm working with a lot of individuals that are maybe currently staying at the Salvation Army. They have some sort of income. They just aren't able to, on their own, find housing because their histories would be looked at and then automatically they don't, qualify. So I have the ability to work with a couple of our property managers who are willing to work with this population, knowing that I'm working with them and helping them. And I also want to indicate too that as I'm working with individuals who are interested in additional case management services, I am linking those individuals into North Central Healthcare, the ADRC, and I've been very successful at getting, several, I want to say 5 off the top of my head, who are now being dually case managed by both the ADRC or Inclusa as well as North Central Healthcare. So I'm making some progress there, but it's all, at will. So if they want it, we move to find that and get that service in place. If they don't, then, we talk about it and maybe we revisit it, in a month from now and see if their mind has changed. So.
I think measured success for us really represents a reduction in any of these numbers, not just the outdoor population. I think that anytime you can get somebody into a more permanent situation than shelter, and, I mean, even with a lot of our nonprofit agencies, they're working with a population that is on the cusp of becoming homeless. And I think if you stave that off and you keep more people from becoming homeless in the first place, you've got a little measured win there as well. So, Lou?
I have a question.
Sure.
Yes, and it's, we talked about at the last council meeting about the one item being about the fence being pushed off because of a tour. We wanted to go tour that. I wanted to go walk down there, but I am afraid I would get a ticket if I parked down there by where the Scots, because where the Riverside place is. But I wanted to go walk down there and look for myself and see what's down there. And I just wanted to know if that tour has been scheduled, or is it something we should do on our own?
I think that's something that we should coordinate as a council, because I think the entire council should be invited to attend. And so I think that, and last I heard when we had talked about that, even a couple of the representatives from public service wished to join the same tour. So
I guess, pardon me for saying so, but I guess, if we toured it before the cow meeting, we might have an insight, more of an insight as what's going on down there too.
my suggestion in finance was that we try to do it that same day at 4:00, because we'd have daylight, we'd be in advance of the finance meeting, and the committee of the whole follows the council meeting that same evening. So if we could get a quorum to do it about that time, and I think that's something that will have to be worked out between the council president and the clerk's office to post the proper notices. Eric Lindman has offered to be helpful in scheduling anything that we want him to schedule, because he's been working with the public service folks. So I think it's just a matter of picking a date and issuing an agenda and then encouraging everyone to attend so that we all can see it at the same time. So if that could be done, I mean, as long as that agenda would go out by Friday, we'd have probably enough time to post and everything, so. Does anyone else have questions for Tracy about the report? Go ahead, Doug.
And then one last hanging chat, I'm sorry. Can you speak to the jail piece there? Is that somebody living in the jail for a duration, or is that a one night?
No,
getting-
so what I asked the jail for is, in the month of February, how many individuals booked in as homeless. So as we note in the footnote that our number of unhoused isn't necessarily completely accurate because we don't unduplicate individuals from one place to the other. So it could be likely that some of those that booked into the jail for the month of February also are counted in as Catholic Charities numbers or Salvation Army.
But they're in jail for offenses not necessarily related to being homeless, and it's not a shelter per se. It's-
Correct.
Okay. All right. So with that, connected to that report, you'll recall at the last council meeting, we also approved funding for Catholic Charities and Open Door to work together to begin a day center, which is ready to take flight. And so we asked at that meeting that periodically we hear from Open Door about their work and about how that's been going. And so with that, Bob Grady, one of the directors from Open Door, is here. I guess, Bob, if you'd like to talk to us a little bit, because I know you're getting ready to roll here with the day center, and periodically we'll certainly see you back under this agenda item for updates anytime you want to give them to us.
So
So
thank you for that. First, I'd be remiss without saying, Rick, what an honor it has been to accompany this man at certain parts of his journey, and it's certainly for people like Tracy, Amanda, and myself, it humbles us. I mean, the work we do, it's definitely hard, and I mean, it's not just the three of us. I mean, there's a lot of people in this community that face a very difficult workday dealing with the populations that we do. I would say that the day center is up and operating. It has been. We're making enhancements and expanding some of the interior programming that is not required but is going to be offered. But, we have been functioning from 5 a.m. till 11, then closed for 2 hours, and then open till 6 every day during the week. And then on Saturday and Sunday, we've expanded from 5 until 2, realizing that's not quite enough, particularly on Sundays, but it's 4 more hours than what we had been doing prior to about the first of the year. So we're getting a lot more things in place, procedures. We went from, anybody who's been to Open Door, a very, very tiny galley-sized kitchen, to downstairs we have opened a kitchen area with dining that 21 people can sit in comfortably, as opposed to 8 people being shoulder to shoulder. So as far as part of the reason I came, and thank you for, I know that we're not agenda'd tonight, but I know that Alder McElhaney had suggested that this would be really a good opportunity to give just a little bit better spin on some of the numbers and some of the things we're seeing. So part of the reason I came tonight was to ask the question, what you would like that report to look like. I can bring you numbers. We can have more of a oratory, what types of things you'd be looking at. So far this year, in terms of unduplicated guests, and then I think this will capture some of the people that we see couch surfing or otherwise not identified as falling into some of the categories that Tracy captures, is we have seen so far this year 340 unduplicated guests. Now, out of those 340, roughly 301 state to be homeless. Again, these are figures that are self-reported by the individual, so a lot of our data and statistics is based on what is reported to us by our clients. We have no way of verification other than that, but I think that 340 really is a resounding number that really gives us pause for reflection when we look at what's going on in our community, because I do think that captures some of the not captured, like people that are couch surfing, people that are going in and out of transitional things. They may be at shelter 4 nights, they get a 10-day strike, then they're out on the street, then some go back in. So each individual story, they transcend from staying at the shelter to staying on somebody's couch to getting a hotel voucher and things. So their journey sort of navigates in and out of some of those categorizations. So I'm answer any questions you have, and again, more than anything, would ask if you could provide me at some point what you would like my report to consist of, and we'll do our very best to provide that to you each month.
Okay. Committee members, do you have anything specific, other than the guest count for the month, is there anything that you would like to see on Bob's reports? Go ahead, Becky.
I'd like, if possible, I'm not asking for anything, that is too hard, but would it be, I know that you are just ramping up your programs, and that is going to be, non-required work, but I would love to see how many people go into your programs or are working in any type of programmatic things that you have going during the day, connecting to services, that type of thing.
Sure, that would be possible.
That would be a great number for me, just to see that.
For example, we did do a job center fair with 3 of the temp agencies, and I know that morning 5 people were added on into the workforce that day.
Yeah, see, that gives, I think it helps council to hear numbers instead of we had 301. If we can get those specifics, I'm a very data-centric person, so that is what I like to see. So, again, I'd rather you give your time to the services, but those type of things are really what help us, because that is what we're looking for, is what are the gaps. And so if you can tell us what's working, and other people aren't, what are the gaps so we can help those gaps, that's kind of what we look for in reports.
And with our programming, again, to emphasize it, because we are a low barrier threshold, it is not required for anybody. And also, we're very, very cautious of not duplicating services. So oftentimes, we may direct a person to a service that's already in place, or invite, McLit would be a good example, where they will come to our environment to do some of the programming. We're beginning to have conversations about that. So it would be partnering with a lot of the other agencies as well, but we can include that in the programmatic portion of the report.
Excellent. I think that will be helpful. I think that one of the things that we had talked about in the task force at the United Way is shepherding still, that the mayor and I serve on, is that recognizing that any day center is going to need to be low barrier. If there's 8 requirements that a person has to meet to enter, the exact people that we want to offer a place for during the day aren't going to go or not going to be able to go. So I think that by breaking down some of those barriers on the front end, letting people get in, get there, get comfortable, get their feet up under them, and then, offer that programming in parallel with some place to go in the day, during the day, I think that will relieve, or should relieve, some of the pressure on other public facilities. We've talked about the library, we've talked about ramps and skywalks and things, and we know that with the absence of the mall building, that really did put pressure on a lot of other structures. So hopefully having a place to go that's low barrier, and then have those services offered in parallel, people will get comfortable and build that trust relationship so that they're comfortable also in accepting that programming when they're ready to accept it. So that's what we have. We do have that committee of the whole that we had just touched on. That's coming up Tuesday night after the council meeting, probably starting by 7:30, I would think. I mean, you think before that even? 7:30?
We've asked for a very, very short council meeting, so.
Okay, so if we keep that agenda light, we can be efficient with that. The only thing that we'd have dangling out there that's not finalized yet is a tour, and I think if we could send out maybe a poll for quorum to see if we could get a tour for Tuesday night.
I guess I would need to know from someone who is going to lead the tour. Do we need police to go with us? I mean, those are the questions I need answered. Is the DPW director going to lead it? I guess, I don't know, I don't want people wandering around by themselves.
I think it's important to have the tour be led. I think that if it's led by either the Public Works Director or someone from the Police Department, either one is appropriate. So, I think that's something that if the,
And will we be able to park down by the parking lot behind the library? Because I know that's all parking for Riverside Place and that Riverside.
Riverside Place, I think, is at
Yeah.
this point lacking tenants.
Yeah, it's
So I
lacking
don't foresee
tenants,
that
and
there's
they're-
going to be a problem if
Yeah,
our
but-
cars are in there for a half hour.
But when I used to go down there with the lunch truck, I noticed that they send a parking patrol there quite
there?
frequently, and that's why I questioned about going down there, even if it was for 5 or 10 minutes to walk over there to, would I get a ticket?
It would be only just if we all got tickets taking the tour, so, but go ahead, Chief.
I would say that, I'm going to be gone next week, but I know the deputy chief will be here. If you'd like me to touch base with Eric and one or both, Matt and Eric can lead the tour.
Okay.
Just tell us what time you guys want it to be. In terms of parking, I don't think there'll be a parking issue down there. I mean, the mayor and I were down there last week, and we registered for parking because that's the requirement. And I would just recommend that everybody do that.
Everybody type into the kiosk.
You
and
go to the
yes.
kiosk, you get a couple free hours, it doesn't cost you anything, and then you won't have to worry about it. So that's what I
Okay,
would recommend.
why don't we work with that, if we can get maybe Deputy Chief Barnes and Eric Lindman to work together and see if we could do that at 4 o'clock, we'd still have enough daylight, and I think it really is only a couple blocks that we need to walk through. I think we can circle back to the cars, and we'd still be back here in time for finance at 5. Finance is early that night because we're meeting jointly with the Water Commission, so the Finance Committee will have to be back here probably by 10 to 5, but I think we could make it. So, all right, anything else on this report that anyone has related to community outreach? Go ahead.
As long as we're gathering data, maybe somebody knows how to capture, because I used to go to the library pretty frequently to read periodicals, and in the last several months, that the library has become the de facto daytime warming shelter for a lot of people. And if we have purpose-built and purpose-operated facilities, we should be relieving the pressure on those places to operate as a library again. And if there's a way to count any impact on those locations, I don't know if the library is the only place, but I know that's probably the biggest one. Yeah.
Well, and I'm not sure if the library tracks it either being a publicly accessible facility. I think they have to let in everyone who wants to be in, so.
No, I'm not
you know,
suggesting
but-
that we don't let someone in,
But I don't-
but they have to manage the, when I was a kid, if you chewed gum in the library, you'd get run out.
Oh.
You know what I'm saying? They're managing dining and eating and things that aren't necessarily what the library's for. So there's a workload that they're enduring, and I think the PD has to come down there. If we have purpose-built locations with staff, that relieves a lot of burden on the rest of those organizations.
It should. I think it'll
Library's
take
just
some-
one, but I don't know if there's others.
It may take some time too for the word to get out, obviously, but I also think, and I know that, I think Tracy is also holding hours down there once a week or something to make that outreach with people. She's holding hours at Open Door and at the library, both to connect with people that may need help, so. So
Yeah.
she's there. Obviously, she can keep an eye out for, whether or not that situation, I mean, you can kind of maybe tell when you're there. Does it look like there's more or less people that you want to connect with? So with that, the last item on our agenda is communications. I have none. Does anyone have any communications? If not, I'll take a motion to adjourn. Motion by Larson, second by Henke. Members in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? No one's ever opposed. We'll stand adjourned. Thanks, everyone.